Hello.
Good morning, Molly. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I am well as well. Thank you for having a few minutes to sit down with Mr. Varberg's Job Palace. We appreciate you taking a few minutes as we pursue your candidacy. I do have several applicants I am meeting with, so just to help me, what position did you apply for?
I applied for a position as an emergency manager.
Emergency manager. And are you okay if we record this interview for future use?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Can we start with just tell me a little bit about yourself?
So a little bit about me would be that I am from Bismarck, North Dakota originally. I have lived in Fargo for the past 3 years pursuing my bachelor's degree in strategic communications. But about halfway through my college career, I discovered a passion for emergency management and picked up the minor. And since then, it's kind of been a little bit of a sprint to kind of catch up to my peers that have been pursuing this since freshman year, since day one. But I really think that I've learned a lot and grown in that. I'm attending a conference next week for emergency managers around the Midwest region. And I'm extremely passionate about it. I'm very risk focused, I'm very competitive, and I'm also very family driven. So I like to keep my roots in North Dakota. I want to stay close to my family if I can. And I'm very excited to meet with you today.
Wonderful. So, something about Mr. Varberg's Job Palace is that we have a lot of people working on a lot of different projects in a lot of different places. Uh,
Sure.
but we really strive for strong communication skills. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the communication skills you've picked up that you would bring with you to this position?
I think some of the communication skills that I picked up leading to this, first and foremost, would be leadership communication. Started off my college career not really sure what being a leader looked like. I thought I had been kind of a leader in my high school, but when I came here, I was shocked to learn that there's a lot more that goes into it. So I've learned that you really need to work on organizing teams. You have to understand personality types so you can manage them better and people can work well with one another. And I think you also have to incorporate the idea of diversity within every community that you're managing. I know that in my time as an RA, I have had to work with very diverse groups of students that coming from a rather small-ish area, I didn't have a lot of exposure to. So learning how to make everyone feel like they have a voice, make everyone feel represented, allowing them all to speak up, and also allowing myself to be a safe haven that they can communicate openly and honestly with me and with each other and feel like they're not going to be judged. And just kind of guiding them to a better path where they can accomplish their goals through I like to follow a sort of gentle leadership style and mostly let people think that they're kind of because they are doing it themselves rather than being heavily influenced by an authority figure that's kind of pushing them one way rather than just gently guiding them towards what they should be doing.
Absolutely. Uh, Molly, would you tell me about a time you failed?
I have failed, I would say a pretty large failure of mine would be this summer. I worked at Fireflower Pizza and Coffee Bar, which is a small restaurant in my hometown. I am a waitress and a barista there. And there was a time when we had a reservation of about 15 people come in. And I was the person who had taken the phone call. This was right after COVID had ended. And I had forgotten to write down the fact that there was 15. I had only written that there was a reservation at 7 o'clock for this group. And so the restaurant filled up pretty quickly. We had an unexpected rush, and all of a sudden we had 15 people in and only seating for 10. So I was caught in a little bit of a tight spot where my manager and all my coworkers were kind of looking at me like, how did you let this happen? Like, we didn't even know that this many people were coming in. And so what ended up happening was I was able to move people's tables, only two tables. I had to kind of maximize efficiency in moving people so that I'm not moving a bunch of groups because we're trying to make a dining experience for everybody, not just this 15. So I assured them that, you know, they'd have a table very shortly. I apologized for the inconvenience. I owned up to it because that was genuinely my fault. And then I spoke with a couple of tables. They were luckily very willing to move and very gracious about it. And I was able to kind of combine a space where these people could all still sit together and enjoy their meal, as well as having every other customer still enjoy the aesthetic and the atmosphere and not feel like, oh my gosh, this restaurant doesn't know what they're doing.
So, as I've mentioned, we do have our employees working on several things at a time. When you are faced with multiple tasks that you need to accomplish, how do you go about prioritizing?
I think the best way to prioritize tasks would be to make a list. I am a very big planner, I'm a big organizer. I carry around a big binder all the time with all of my obligations inside of it. And ranking your priorities on a list, maybe writing down the due dates so you understand this is when each thing is due, is a really smooth and easy way to understand what needs to get done first. And it helps you stay accountable to your priorities. If I'm checking my list and I'm working on number 7 when number 1 is due at 3 p.m. today, then I know that I need to change what I'm doing and refocus myself.
Absolutely. So, we've talked a little bit about a time when you failed. I'd love for you now to share with me some of your strengths.
Some of my strengths, I think I have a very strong communication ability for connecting with new people. This was kind of a task that I honed a little bit more in the recent school year or so, because over Zoom and over lots of virtual communication, I found it a lot more difficult to connect with people, especially on an interpersonal level. It's very easy to connect on a task-based, you know, task-based way, but when you get to the relational aspect, I think it gets to be a bit more challenging. So I've kind of developed this skill set where I can communicate online with people and still form connections that are similar, maybe not quite the same as an in-person bond that I might have with them. I try to make people feel very welcomed and very honored in their spaces and try to show that, you know, okay, I'm communicating with you through a computer screen. It's not the same as normal life, but I want you to know that I value this just as much as before, especially because we are communicating through a computer for our own safety of each other. That shows a level of care that, you know, some businesses and some people may not have. So that's something that I think is a skill that I have. I also would say my organizational skills are fairly good. I am a very clean person. I like to keep my spaces neat, and that includes my desktop, my documents, my schoolwork. I just like to keep everything on the same kind of format because it makes it easier to stay on top of things, and it also helps others, you know, see that you value what they're doing and value their work when you turn in something, an assignment that fits exactly the protocol that the teacher asked for. You know, you're showing that level of respect and that level of care. I took the time to ensure that this is right for you.
Absolutely. So, my final question, Molly, why should I hire you to be our emergency manager?
I believe that you should hire me because I'd be a valuable asset to your team. I strive to grow in my own abilities as well as embrace new ones. And I very much so think that I have gained a lot of valuable experience within my college years within the field of emergency management, so much so that I am well prepared to guide a team in, you know, working with catastrophes, disasters, risk, and ensuring that everybody is on the same page all the way.
Absolutely. Do you have any questions for me at all?
I do. So you mentioned earlier that you guys hire a variety of individuals from all kinds of backgrounds and job positions. What do you think is the way that you best promote diversity and inclusion within your workplace when working with all these different people?
That is a fantastic question. So, something that we have a lot of is open conversation, open dialogue. Anybody who has any idea is welcome to bring it to the next like the next person, even though one of the big things is that we really don't believe in hierarchy.
Sure.
We don't have supervisors and direct bosses. We have coaches and guides. And so I
Sure.
think that helps create an environment where everybody can feel that they have a voice and that they are accepted amongst it.
Sure. That is fantastic. I know in most of the job positions that I've worked at before, there's been a little bit of a hierarchy or an unspoken hierarchy within positions. And although it may not largely affect the dynamic, I think that over time you kind of form these like power differentials where maybe I don't want to speak up as much because person X technically is my boss or, has a little bit more power than me. So in turn, my voice doesn't feel like it's as important. So that's fantastic that you guys do that.
Yeah. And that will conclude the interview.